Welcome to Speakernomics, the official podcast of the National Speakers Association. Created by speakers for speakers. It's your fast track to sharper skills, bigger impact, and a smarter speaking business. Subscribe and download using the link below. And step into the spotlight.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Speakernomics. We are here to help you build your business, and you are going to love our guest today, who is going to be doing a special session at Influence that you are not going to want to miss. So let me introduce you to Sarah Michel. She is a CSP and the Vice President of Professional Connexity for Velvet Chainsaw Consulting, helping organizations design and improve meetings. You are going to love her. Her team consults over 25 national and international conferences each year. She's an experienced architect who has been working in the meetings industry for over 25 years. She helps create dynamic audience experiences. She has hired and delivered a ton of keynote speaks. She's hired a ton of keynote speakers, and she has delivered a ton of keynote speeches herself over the years. Sarah, welcome to Speakernomics.
Thanks, Gina. It's good to be here.
Well, Sarah, I'm excited about attending your session this year. I know it was a packed house last year. Tell us about what you will be doing at Influence this year.
Yeah. So, last year at Influence, Candace York and I came up with this idea to do a post-con kind of, we ended at lunch at pretty much on Tuesday. And then there was this big gap of time until the CPA event was kicking off. And we thought, let's put together a session and I'll invite 3 of my meeting planner clients to come down. And we thought, oh, it'll be good if we get like maybe 200 people in the room, and it ended up being packed with standing room only, more like 500. We're like, okay, this is hitting the nail on the head here for some people. So this year we're gonna go bigger, and this will be a main stage session on Sunday morning. And I'm very excited to share that we have 3 really big, major hitters coming in. We have Stephanie Liflin, who is the corporate director for meetings for CoBank. And I was in how she came about. This is a funny story. We were traveling back from an event together. Her boss was there too. Her senior VP was in we're sitting in the United Lounge. And I said, Stephanie, I think we're going to do a session. You should come to Austin because you hire a lot of speakers. And I literally said, just give me an idea. Like, what was your budget last year for speakers? And literally her boss opened up her laptop, did a few crunching and said, oh, we spent $2 million. And I said that was in 2025 because this is like in December. And she's like, yeah. And I said, well, what about 2024? 1.8 million. So I'm like, yeah, you need to be in Austin. So her boss said, yeah, you need to go. So she's coming. Because we're in Austin, I got Greg Rosenbaum, who is the senior planning director for South by Southwest, which happens, of course, to be in Austin, who is responsible for somewhere between 3,800 to 4,000 speakers, entertainers, podcasters, etc., that he hires for South by Southwest. He's going to unveil kind of how he finds you, which is very different from how Stephanie finds you. And then finally, we have coming from $1 Million Roundtable, Jason Harrington. Jason is one of the program planners for $1 Million Roundtable, which, Gina, you and I know is like the gold standard for NSA members. If you make it to the $1 Million Roundtable, they have 4 major global events a year, hire multiple speakers for each of those events, and you've kind of made it if you make it on their program. And they're usually very tight-lipped on how they find speakers. They keep everything really cloaked and daggered, and Jason's coming down from Chicago to give us a lot of intelligence. So it will, we're really going to kind of uncover, because very different. We've got a super large festival, we have a corporate, and then we've got $1 Million Roundtable, which is really an association, but a unique association. So we're going to find out how they identify Their speakers, how you get on their radar, very different for all three of them. We're going to talk about audience engagement and creating lasting impact because it's changed what planners are looking for now from speakers. How members and attendee expectations have really evolved, which speakers really need to step up to be able to meet those needs. And then how can what are we expecting from speakers to adapt in terms of content format and delivery to stay relevant? So it will be, you want to be in the room for sure in Austin on Sunday morning for that one.
Sunday morning. Okay. Sometimes people are up a little bit late on Saturday night. So be sure that you are not one of those who misses it
Yeah.
on Sunday and
I
wishes.
think we're on at 10, we're on at 10:30. Come on, you can
Okay,
get
no
up for
problem.
that. Yeah.
All right. Well, since you do a lot of hiring of speakers yourself, tell me a little bit about what you're looking for today, how you're identifying and selecting the right speakers for your events.
Yeah, so we so our firm is kind of unique that we're on, basically retained contracts with our clients. So there's probably about maybe 6 conferences a year that I'm on a retainer for. I'm mostly kind of producing them, and I help identify the right speaker. We kind of call it matchmaking. We're not a bureau. When I identify the right speaker and negotiate everything, you're going to end up contracting directly with the client. There's no commission like that with me. But what I'm really seeing from most of our clients is, really looking for an opening general session speaker that is really going to set the tone for the conference. We're really looking for how do we bring everybody together under one tent and create that community connection that people are kind of coming to events for and wanting. So how do we really set the stage for that? I think really the expectation that you are going to get this audience, you're going to do your homework, you're going to not come deliver a canned speech. We really look for a lot of authenticity. We kind of expect you to probably interview some of our members, and we'll give you access to that and expect you to do that so that you can really come in understanding their pain points and custom that message. And when I say custom, it not just means saying our name 3 or 4 times in your speech, but really understanding where we come from. So that's really important. Definitely, I think for sure what our members, our professional speaker members, are really your biggest competitor right now is not each other. It's the industry speaker that will speak for free, to get that understands the audience so well and the pain points so well that is creeping into some of the slots professional speakers would take, because the client wants the content to be so relevant that finding a professional speaker that can do it. But on the other end, I was sharing with you before we started this, I have a client that was looking for a very, very specific somebody from their industry. I put a lot of professional speakers in front of them, and they kept saying, no, 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 they don't get us. And then when we interviewed the people that did get them, they weren't polished enough and they weren't going to be strong enough for main stage. And I was like, I told you that. But anyways, with Europe, that's, I think, the biggest competitor that professional speakers have is not each other. Don't worry about each other. It's the people in the industry that speak for free.
So is there more that a speaker who wants to be on that stage can do in the interview stage or in the initial stage to demonstrate that they either have the knowledge or can adapt their presentation and be ready to be extremely relevant?
Yes. Thank you for asking that. As I just did a pre-call, I think it's very, I can't even think of an instance where I've been involved with hiring a speaker that we didn't do a pre-interview on before we even got to contract. And I can't tell you how many times they show up or send your manager, like, don't ever do that. Don't ever send somebody else. I mean, it doesn't happen so much with NSA members, but it does happen with celebrities or people who think they're celebrities. But anyways, that's just a total kill. That will just kill the deal right away. But I definitely showing up to having done your homework. And there's no excuse now for what's available, what you can get with online and chat and all of that to get the intelligence. But being able to go back and look at who we've hired in the past, and if you happen to know one of those speakers, reach out before the interview and find out what resonated, what was the audience like. There's so much available on the websites particularly for associations to understand who they are. Stephanie's audience from CoBank is a pretty conservative audience. These are rural cooperatives, energy cooperatives, and they're rural towns, and they're a very, very conservative audience. And so if you came on that call and didn't know that, or said anything that could possibly sound political or not leaning towards right, you would kill the deal with Stephanie. So it's just kind of knowing who you're talking to, knowing who the audience pain points are, and there's just no reason not to come onto an interview call and not know that with what's available. If you're going through a bureau, and by the way, if you're going through a bureau, there's a really good chance the bureau rep doesn't even know what you need to know for the call. So go the extra mile and do the homework, and be ready to give examples of how your content will be relevant for them. What are the pain points and challenges the audience is facing? And here's how I'm going to help them. Here's what I'm going to do, what they're going to walk out knowing or learning or being able to apply as a result of being in my session.
Oh, that's good. Speaking of not being political on a pre-call, I imagine a lot of these folks that are making decisions on who to bring in are reviewing the social media and the blog posts and the videos and some of those things before someone even makes the cut to get on the pre-call, or certainly before they get into a contract mode. And I am shocked to see how many colleagues are posting things on their social media that are very political. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, people have to do what's right for them. I'm not gonna, I don't really have any, I'm just gonna say people have to do what's right for them. And there would be some people who are listening to this who are saying, yeah, I wouldn't be right, for example, for CoBank because I'm not willing to not say anything. And that's okay. And know that and pull yourself out. But if you want to be open to everybody, you do need to watch what you're posting, or just know that if you go there, you're drawing a line for some people that they won't be willing to cross. And for some people, they're okay with that line being drawn. I think you have to make your own personal decision on that. But to say that people don't see it is wrong. There, no question. People will go Google that and see it. I think, I don't know that I've ever been in a room. I work a lot with planning committees who are making decisions on speakers, and I've never seen anybody kind of pull up social media, but they definitely pull up YouTube, and they don't just go to your demo video. They Google you and YouTube and whatever's out there. Potentially, I mean, I've been in the room and it's on the big, we've got a monitor and it's on the big screen, and there you are, some video that you cut, with some friends. But we found it because we Googled your name. So they don't always look at your demo video. They'll look at whatever they can find.
And now with the AI tools knowing everything about us, all they have to do is ask AI, what political persuasion, how does this person lean politically, or how does this person, what has this person done that's controversial, that sort of thing. And so
I guess you're right. I've never been in the room where that's happened, but I can tell you what does happen is they call their trusted sources. So planners contact their planner friends. There's a couple of listservs that we can't get into that are controlled by PCMA or MPI, and you've got to be a planner to be in those listservs. It's very tight, and they will go in and say, thinking about hiring Gina Carr, who's had an experience with her, and boom, 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 people start popping up. And, and if it's great, it's great. And that might be all they need to make the decision. May never even look at your video. They may just get it from their trusted source. But if you've had a bad experience, or you've been a prima donna, or you've, done things that tick them off, selling from the stage or whatever it could be, that will be shared in the listserv. I've seen that happen, and that could kill the deal. So be easy to work with.
Excellent. Great advice. And as you are saying that it's important to prepare for the pre-call and to do what you can to demonstrate that you understand the industry, I have found that chatting with my AI tools, and not just typing, actually having a conversation in the audio mode where everything that we say is transcribed, which is wonderful because I can refer back to it, but actually telling it in advance, hey, I want you to help me prepare for this pre-call and this, and go to the website, give it as much information as I can, and ask it to really discuss with me and let me know if I've said something wrong or incorrect. For example, I'm doing a lot of work with doctors right now, and I'm having a lot of difficulty switching from talking about clients to patients. Okay, Gina, you need to talk more about patients instead of clients when you're talking to one of your doctor clients. So that's just an example of.
No, and that's a really good call out, Gina, because I've been on pre-calls, pre-interview calls with speakers, and for example, in a healthcare situation, and referring to it as clients instead of patients. So like getting that lingo down is huge for those pre-interviews. There's a lot of hot buttons. Like, for example, I work with physician assistants, educators, and I can't tell you how many times we've interviewed a speaker and they'll say, they don't say it right. They don't say the PA or the physician assistant correctly. I just see like the hairs in their neck stop, and it's like, give them a break. They can get educated, but it's like, hey, if you're trying to choose between three speakers and you just screwed up who we are, didn't say it correctly, or that might be the one thing that they say, we're going to go with this other speaker.
Something like that, because like when people are reviewing resumes, they're really, they get a batch. And I've done this before. I've hired a lot of people over the years, and I'm really sadly looking for, okay, this one doesn't work. And I'm very particular about grammar and spelling and those sorts of things. And most of the people I hire need to know that. And if on the resume, or if on the letter, now the email that they send, they clearly haven't paid attention to those skills, they're not going to make the cut. They're just not going to make the cut.
You're just trying to eliminate, right? I mean, with when we're looking at 3 to 5 final speakers for one slot, we're trying to eliminate. We're trying to come down to the one person. And so if you give us a reason to say no, to make it easier, now we're down to 4, that can happen. But so yeah, I think coming in prepared, knowing the audience, knowing the correct terms. And I love your suggestion. My Chat GPT plus robot, I have a name, I've named her and I talked to her. And I think that's a great strategy to kind of talk back to me and do that. That's an awesome recommendation for getting ready. Definitely.
Well, good. Well, one of the components of your session that you're going to be doing at Influence in Austin this year on Sunday morning at 10:30 CT, right? Central Time.
Yes.
is about how speakers can add more audience engagement. We keep hearing you got to have audience engagement and you got to have a lasting impact. What are some suggestions that you can share of what you've seen that folks are doing well in that area?
Again, this would be something that, on that pre-call, you would want in your homework, you'd want to really find out what's working. So I just came from a meeting. We had 6,000 people in the audience, and the opening general session speaker was somewhat of a celebrity, but he he was, we talked about, and when you're hiring celebrity, it's kind of hard to be able to say really, really what we want you to do, because you know how it goes. But we had a great pre-call, and I said, this person had a lived experience with the audience, so there was going to be a great connection to begin with, because he understood exactly what they did because he received their treatment. So it was really kind of talking to him about talk to them, get them engaged, bring them around, bring them on this emotional roller coaster, make them remember why they do the work they did. And he did it. There was no parent share. There was no putting people, anything like that. But there was this really talking to them, sharing, very, really real personal stories that they could all relate to. There was a little bit of call and response kind of thing that he did initially, but he had them in the palm of his hand. You could have heard 6,400 people in that room, and you could have heard a pin drop, because he just got them and had such a great lived experience. So it's not necessarily great storytelling, of course, is really critical to take people on that ride. And just really being able to speak to the audience as I get you, I'm walking with you, I understand you, is probably, the most important piece of engagement. And then being able to take people somewhat on an emotional journey. And I think that general sessions is the only time that we call it the big tent. It's the only time we bring the entire community of the organization together under one room. The rest of the time we're in concurrence, we're broken up. And so the responsibility for the speaker to create that community and connection, or connexity, which is the title of my word, which is where we took community and connecting and put them together. How we need you to deliver on that, and you got to bring them. And so how do we make them feel like they're in the tent and they belong here and they're welcomed here, and especially in that opening. Now, in the closing, it's the same thing. And the closing speaker, we need you to send them out walking higher than they walked in, and remind them, it's what I call leave taking. What are you going to leave the audience with? That is just as critical. That's the bookending, of the meeting. How you open and how you close a conference is what the attendees remember the most.
Love that. Well, you mentioned earlier interviewing people from their industry, from their company, from their association. And I have found that to be very successful as well. And in fact, that's how I've sort of merged. Well, bring in the professional speaker, me, and I'll also bring in some of your experts. So who might not be so comfortable getting on stage, but would be comfortable doing an interview. So I actually do play, I love to play clips from those interviews to reinforce or set up the point that I'm going to make. Do you think that's effective, or do you think it's better to not do that, or does it
I love that. Yeah, I love that. You definitely, if you have video clips, that's great. Simon Bailey, I've worked with a lot. Simon ends up interviewing, and then he tells this story with like an image of the person that he's interviewed. So there are a lot of different ways to do it, but it's very effective. It's very effective. So I love that. I know other speakers that have gone, like Brad Montgomery is famous for, if he gets booked, he'll go to the actual company or the franchise of the company that's hired him, and then do a funny thing with them, on video in one of their restaurants or stores or whatever, and then that gets brought in. I mean, all that stuff is awesome. Yes, 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 yes. And saying that you would do that in the interview could clinch the deal, because you have to realize that for the planner, making the decision on the speaker is very critical, because there's usually only 2 or 3 at the most 4 slots. And it's a huge investment. It's not as, believe it or not, it's not as expensive as coffee, but depending on the size of the meeting, but it's a big decision. And if the speaker doesn't land well, the first person they go to is the planner. The planner takes the fall for not the bureau, not anybody else, not me. It would be the planner who takes the fall. And so it's a huge risk they're taking. And they need everything that you can give them in that interview that makes them say, I'm going to take a risk on you. You're convincing me this is the right move. And something that's really unique, like video clips or like interviewing people and featuring their face. I mean, all of that tells me as a planner, you're going to go the extra mile. You're going to make a connection. That's an audience connection because they want to see themselves up there. They want to know. And anytime we can feature members, especially in association, it's a win. Again, creating that big tent, you belong here experience. So yeah, love that. Keep doing that.
And of course, it sets them up as a bit of an expert, recognized expert and
Yeah.
celebrity at the conference. So I found that to be successful. I'm glad that you love that as well.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, as we wrap up here, what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you if they have a question or they do want to know a little bit more? Is it LinkedIn, your website? What's the best way?
Sure. Yeah, LinkedIn or just velvetchainsaw.com. You can find me through the website.
Velvet Chainsaw. That's such a clever name and Connexity. Before we go, how did you come up with Velvet Chainsaw? What's the?
Well, it's not my company, so I can't take credit for the name. The owner, Dave Lutz, it was actually a nickname that he was given by a client because the client was going to get stuck with this huge attrition bill, which is where you tell the hotel, we're going to use this many rooms, and then you don't use them. They can come back and charge you the full rack rate. And it was like $500,000. And it was an association that would have put them potentially under. And my boss went into a room and showed that they actually rebooked all those rooms to transient people, and they had to wipe the bill clean. And my client said, my God, you're the Velvet Chainsaw. So that was like 20 years ago. And then he started the firm 15 years ago. And everybody said, you can't be a consulting firm and be called Velvet Chainsaw. And it's probably the reason we get the work we get. People love the name. But yeah, I can't take credit for it.
Okay, I love it. But that does show something like that is unique and memorable and intriguing.
Yeah, we always get asked, well, how did you come up with the name like you just did? It's the number one question I get asked. And it's a great story that it was a nickname from a client because Dave saved the day.
Very good. Well, with that, let's wrap it up so that we can make sure we get our registration in, get your plane tickets, get your hotel booked, all of those things that you're going to need for Influence in Austin this year. Sarah, I look forward to seeing you there.
You too, Gina.
And a video watcher of Speakernomics or listener to the podcast, I look forward to seeing you there. Please come up and say that you heard this great conversation that I had with Sarah Michel, and that's one of the many reasons that you are at this conference this year. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Speakernomics. If you want more bookings, credibility, and connections, your NSA community is waiting for you. Join NSA today. Click the link below and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and download this podcast wherever you listen.